we have many challenges ahead. We have hyperinflation. We have COVID that has wrecked the world economy in ways that we won't feel for a while, but will be very pervasive. We have mass hunger. We have political unrest, civil wars. We have a lack of faith in electoral systems. This industry is about the systems business. That's our business. It's not about whether a token goes up or down. It's about how do we want the human race to live, who gets to decide that, and ultimately, how much control do you personally have versus someone else that you've never met and didn't elect. The next 25 years, all the rules of society are going to change out of necessity because the old systems just don't work anymore, and technology has undone the levers of control that knock them back into calibration. The point of our industry is to be part of the marketplace of ideas about where to go and what to do. For this dream that we can actually go places that we've never gone before and live lives that we could only imagine and improve the condition of the totality of the human race, it is worth enduring any amount of criticism, suffering, and even imprisonment or death. Because after all, who would want to live in a world with no freedom or liberty? And there are millions of people in the world who have reached that point where they've opted out of the legacy system and they are in the marketplace for new systems. And having people like Vitalik and Ethereum ultimately makes my job and the industry's job easier, because good ideas, good software, and good progress comes from that endeavor. Even if we disagree on principles, even if we disagree on architectures or philosophical approaches upon how to get there, I don't, again, think we have ever once disagreed on where we'd like to go and the things that we'd like to see happen. I just happen to believe the way we do things is a bit more mature and responsible, because the way that we do things results in a better assurance that the systems we build won't fail. And ultimately, if these systems are being used by people and they fail, those people will lose their money, their privacy. And as these become more ingrained in your lives, potentially your lives themselves. There's no greater example of that than when the control system failed on the Boeing 737 MAX. Ultimately, that's a software problem embedded in a more complex issue. And the lack of formal methods and rigor in the process is mostly due to cost cutting, was one of the key contributors to that incident that killed hundreds of people. And so when you think about software, especially protocols that are going to control your lives, I always ask, what's the rush? We should instead do it right the first time, because we might end up with the worst case scenario of a system that is tragically and brutally flawed, but we can't change it because it got too much adoption. This has been the guiding principle of Cardano, evidence-based software in the peer review process. And we're so fortunate to have a peer review process that runs with conferences instead of papers, which means that the papers have never academic journals. The papers have never been the slow point. It's actually been engineering issues, and we've overcome them, and we've been able to get into a great efficiency. But the scientists have delivered, and in many cases waited more than a few years for their work to be delivered to market. So the peer review process was never a bottleneck, and it has resulted in us discovering countless thousands of issues and bugs and problems, and guiding the protocol development in a direction that I think is ultimately sustainable. Now, I could be wrong in that, and this is why there's so much diversity of thought in this space. Yet we still, I think, have a fair shot to be able to have these ideas become the dominant ideas and ultimately build a decentralized brain and ultimately build great financial protocols.